All right. So I'm going to approach this the same way I do with most of my work is the wash, reserve my rights, reserve whites. Sorry, I got to put that in there. Okay, wash, shadow shapes. Okay. And I think because I want part of this to merge, the foreground and the background, I think playing with the wash in the background and then leaving and making some of the background merge into the foreground by painting, reserving, well, first of all, I have to reserve my whites. Know that, where is my white going to be? There's going to be a little bit of a white up at the top here, maybe just a little bit, but not a whole lot. And then this is all going to be black. So I can get that really dark. And I think it might be nice to have this as a contrast there. So, all right, here I'm going to start with a wash. I'm going to use a larger brush. And because this is going to be pink, I'm going to play around with my colors here. This is a really, really vivid color here. And I think that's very fun. It's not totally the color that the flamingo is, but I can probably use this a little bit more of a red, cad red. Yes, that's nice. With some of that magenta color. I think that's going to be really nice. So I can kind of merge those two colors together. And any of the areas that I want to keep light, like right in here for the flamingos, lighter feathers, I can kind of maybe do a really light wash in there. And I might do some like negative painting too, with creating an overall wash and then coming back over and softening some of the edges with a darker color. So let's try this. All right, so I'm gonna mix using this palette over here. I'm gonna bring this over here. Take some of the color that's already there. I know it's already dark, but I'm gonna add some of this color in there. And because I'm gonna be creating a wash, I want to use a lot of paint, so I'm gonna put a lot of water in there. I want a big volume of paint. And I might play around with varying the color in the background so that I have some kind of a fun thing happening. Yes, okay. So let's go. Try and get some, oh, and this is where it's a better idea to use watercolor paint because, or not watercolor paint, but paper, because I'm gonna put some washes on here. It's not going to be really the best. You're gonna see, unfortunately, you're gonna see this kind of go in a direction. But you know what I'll do is I can use that to my advantage. And I'm gonna create some textures by just dry brushing some other colors in. And then coming back and getting this pink in some of these areas here. So it really just looks like a kind of a big old mess right now. But it's still wet, so I think might be nice to kind of take some of this thicker paint where I know it's going to be darker, and I can add some of that color in there. So that's going to merge I'm just going in all these different reds that I have. I'm right in there and keeping it to inside of the shape, but I know it's going to bleed outside because it's still wet. Now I'm going to play with getting some cad red, just really strong cad red, and dropping that in some of those places, and that's going to bleed in a really fun way. So like I said, this is really exploratory, you guys. This is kind of a crazy thing. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start adding some of this blue because I want to kind of create a purple. And I'm going to paint, maybe add a little bit of a different blue, this phthalo blue in here, and create some textures around there. Now what I'm doing is I'm kind of thinking of the darker areas behind behind the flamingo, and now I'm just making stuff up. There's actually some bamboo in the background. So I might just kind of take that marking or the way that bamboo looks, there's these leaves are coming out, and then maybe I'll do some negative painting. Okay, so yeah, this looks like a big ugly mess for now. But I can still see, the trick is I gotta be able to see my pencil line so that I can draw in what I drew before. So far, fun, ugly mess. But I've got my colors already merged with my foreground and my background. So that's me doing that. I could still play around with a little bit of the other possibilities, which is taking some of the background color and putting it in the foreground. So I'll take a little bit of this blue and now see, I actually probably need a lot more because I want it to drip. Okay. And creating the blue and merging it. Oh, I'm already merging it, but I'm actually trying. There we go. That's actually really fun because it is really intense. And it's actually doing this kind of interesting thing here where it's pushing the paint that's on the surface is pushing it out. Okay. Still a very ugly mess. This is very intense blue. My water is very dirty. So if I add any water, I'm gonna have to use clean water and have my dirty water and clean water together. Right. I really want that to kind of the background to dry anyway. I'm gonna switch from this big brush to this smaller brush. And I'm gonna start thinking about how to maybe take some of the maybe take some of that pink and add that pink from the foreground into the background a little bit more, so it's a little bit more intense. Let's see, but that's not a good brush to do that with, so. It's gotta be a lot of paint on it. Alrighty. Make sure that brush is really clean because that I think is my quinacridone rose and it's very, very, very bright. All right. So just so you can see it again. This is the flamingo. So you can see I've got some of these areas up here that are lighter. I'm gonna start kind of fleshing out, or not fleshing out, but doing a little bit more work in the details. And I know that it's parts of it is still wet, and that's okay because I'm going with the idea that some of it is gonna be softer and some of it's gonna be more detailed with edges, and that's fine. So I'm just gonna go with what it is right now. So I think there's a feeling of a little bit more warmth in some of the flamingo. So I'm gonna kind of go with more of a warm color and see what happens when I do that. And I'm just playing. I'm gonna get this. I think this is a cad lemon yellow, and I'm gonna mix that. I'm gonna mix it with the like the quinacridone, and that's gonna give me like a really kind of a warm orange because that red is already really bright. And I'm looking for where my paper is still wet. So I'm just kind of like layering these strokes in just to kind of create some kind of texture. And I noticed though too that some of this, there's a blue speckle in there that's not quite dry. If I were to run into that right now, it's gonna do something I might not be wanting. I'm gonna come over here with like a real warm orange right up at the top. And because I know that the light, it looks like the light is pretty ambient on this photo, but I'm gonna say that the light is coming from the left top. And so that means I'm just gonna lighten or warm things up towards the top left. I could maybe just come in here with some yellow and see what happens. Okay. Now, I hit those are my lights. So now I'm gonna play and develop a little bit more in the shadows. I'll come in here with this red here. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of that blue to it. It's gonna make it nice and dark. And I see that there's some shadow right down here, the bottom right, which makes sense. If my light is coming from the top left, then any darker area is going to be in the bottom left. And yes, I know that this is a mess. I'm still thinking of like merging these colors together. I'm going to hit the bottom of this flamingo here. Maybe just a little bit more purple. Ooh, that's nice. That's going to soften up at some point. And I'm going to add this darker purple in here. I really lost the shape of what I've drawn before. So I drew this really light with the understanding that I didn't want to see the line, but now I can't really see the line at all. So I'm gonna have to make this up as I go. This is still really, really wet. You can see all the stuff that I just painted. Okay. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to paint a little bit, I think I'm gonna paint the beak, which is gonna be black. But I don't want to use black. I think I'm gonna use, I'm gonna mix a neutral color. So I'm just taking this color that's already on my palette here, this blue, this red. I'm gonna see how dark I can get it. That's really dark, but it's still very watery, and I want it to be really, really thick. So I'm gonna go right into my blue and just pull some, I don't know, some of this alizarin crimson. And that looks so, that's really purple, but that might be, this is a good value. It's really dark, but I want it to be really, I want it to be very, not too thick, but I want it to be dark. So that's a lot of water. Beak comes up a little bit like that, and that's gonna merge into there in an interesting way. Okay, so that's gonna take some time to dry. I think since I'm waiting for the bird to dry, I'm gonna work on the legs. And there's a little bit of texture in the legs. So that's too bright. I'm gonna take more of a desaturated, not too desaturated, but I'm just kind of playing with all the colors on my palette. This is gonna give me like a purplish, that's more mauve-y color. And I'm gonna dry my brush because I want this color, but I don't want it to be really wet. And it looks like he's got these little lines and on his leg. And I'm not doing it precisely, but I'm doing it enough so that you can see that there's texture there. And then he's got feet. I'm gonna come in here with a little bit of a darker. Take that blue, mix it in with the red. And I'm gonna put some of that up at the top here so that it feels like it's connected. Okay, you can kind of see a flamingo coming up through this. It's kind of coming. It's in there. But most of my work is going to be in the detail of refining these edges. A lot of it is waiting for it to, this is very, very wet. So a lot of it is waiting for it to dry. So the areas that I see that are mostly dry are up at the top. So I'm going to take, this color here, and I'm going to kind of negatively paint around this. Let's see, it's really purple. I want it to be purple. I think I want it to be a little bit more red. A little bit more red. And I want it to be light. I want it to be not too dark, because I love this coloring that's coming through here, and I want that to kind of show through. So I'm going to negatively paint around the shape of the flamingo. I have to do it very, very carefully. I'm going to start at the edge. I have a lot of paint on my brush. I want to be very careful because I want to make it even. I want to make an even wash. So I'm starting at the edge and then I'm going to pull that out. Keep that bead of paint there so that I can still blend that out. But I got to do this quick. That's still blending. It's still wet, so it's kind of still merging. And now I'm going to look at the tail on the feathers. And some of them are kind of edging like this. And I'm going to come back in here and I'm just mixing up these blues and purples on my palette. That way it's not always the same color, but I'm getting that variation. And I really like the blue kind of linear aspect that's happening over there. So you can see I have a little bit of a pool here. I don't really want that. So I'm gonna add a little bit more of a dark color in between here. Just this really dark blue right up against, whoa. I want that really dark blue right up against the red. And that's I'm just gonna do right into the phthalo. It's still wet, so it's gonna spread. And because I'm creating that contrast of dark color against the light, that light wash is gonna pop a lot more. But you know, this isn't totally dry. So I'm gonna have some merging happening, which is nice. That's kind of what I want there. And I want to do that on the other side too, but I don't want to do it next to the bird's beak because then that's going to get completely lost. So I'm going to do something kind of interesting here if I can. I'm going to try and paint right up to beak. Now I'm going to clean my brush and just smooth in between there. So there's a little bit more of a transition because I don't want a dark edge next to the black. Otherwise, I need the area around the beak to be light. Otherwise, that beak is going to get lost. And so that almost creates, you can kind of take this brush and kind of make some texture there. That black spot creates focal point. I have to pick up some of this paint here because it's pooling. All right. I'm going to come down here and do a little bit more of that, but I'm going to use maybe a different blue. Maybe I'll try this ultramarine blue. Let's see what that looks like on this end. Now some of that's still wet, and that's okay. Because remember, I want to do merging. So see by negatively painting these shapes in after I've done my wash underneath, I've got all this fun color that's coming through in some of these places. I'm also kind of keeping with the idea that this is in bamboo. See, all this is so dark behind it. But what I'm doing is I've got some soft edges where the flamingo really is blending in with the background. And I can make the foreground in the front. I can make that kind of blend in with that foreground a little bit more too. And I think I want to define the legs a bit more. So that means that I'm going to come in there with a darker paint, but I don't want it to be too dark. I want this to stay darker. So I'm going to come and get this red. I haven't added any more color. I'm just using red and blue. I added a little bit of yellow for the warmth in there because I think that needed a little bit of warmth here. So now I'm going to come right into these areas, and because the leg is pretty much all dry, but I think I want to use more of a red for the bottom, so that'll differentiate itself from the background above. And because I don't want that to be hard, I'm just gonna kind of soften that around there. Okay. Now, this is really fun. It's way more loose than I would have intended to, or way more loose than I would have done on my own had I not told myself these parameters. Given my own, left to my own devices, this painting wouldn't have come out this way. I had to tell myself to restrict myself in this way. So what I also want you to learn in this class is that you don't need me to necessarily tell you what to do. You need to choose how you limit yourself. You need to create these boundaries or intentions or areas of focus to be more exploratory if you're not sure what to do. So this is still really wet. But what I can do now is I can come in with a smaller brush. Let's see here. Use my Walensky. And I'm gonna, oops, I don't want that yellow color. I do want to have more of this pink color again. But I want it to be kind of a warm wash. I want it to be darker than the area that I'm covering up. So maybe I'll add a little bit more of another red in there, a little bit warmer. And I'm going to start to define some of these edges. I know some of the stuff is still wet. So anywhere that it's wet, it's going to merge. Anywhere that it's dry, it's not. Now I'm not copying this. I'm basically looking at the shape of the what's it called, feathers. And I'm kind of recreating that movement with the stroke. I'm gonna come in here and get another, I haven't used that red yet, so I'm gonna go back to another red that I've already used. And I'm blending it into my palette so that I have color harmony. Yeah, this looks like it's kind of dry up here. Oop. So I'm gonna refine that a little bit more. I'm gonna pull some purple in here just to give us a little bit more of a shadow. Okay. All right. And let's see if there's anything else I can do. Maybe just add a little bit of warmth in that shadow in there too. Oh, I need to paint the eye. I'm gonna make that eye really yellow. Can't really see it, but it's there. Okay.